I'm here to talk about the one-size-fits-all American education system that is failing our students. As I flipped through the pages to my SAT, exhausted from the previous passages, bubbling in answers on a Scantron sheet, and my eyes were strained, I could barely bring myself to read through the prompt. I was expecting another banal passage, lifted from a journal about how social media is changing our youth culture, or how telecommuting is revolutionizing the workplace. But as I started to delve into the Wall Street Journal article by Peter Downs, I could feel my anxious mood changing. The article discussed the benefits of an apprenticeship program, one of the many umbrellas under a non-traditional education. And I was amazed to find that students in other places spent their days learning a profession or trade rather than studying the standardized test I was currently taking. Upon reading this article, I was fascinated by the different educational tactics used in other countries, particularly given how efficient they appeared to be on the outside. As a high school student interested in public policy, I decided to dig deeper into the politics undergirding these education systems in an effort to better understand how our education system became so limited in its approach. Before the idea of this talk was even a possibility, all I had was a pressing curiosity about education policy and a burning desire to change it. My own story starts with an academic career as a solid B student, always feeling like school wasn't for me. I wouldn't call myself lazy. You can often find me reading an article about sports science or car design. But when it comes to the traditional school subjects, I struggle to bring myself to sit down and do the work. I'd always assumed this was a personal failing, a manifestation from the distaste for my academics and my unwillingness to dedicate endless hours to the subjects I found irrelevant to me. As a senior, everything changed. I've had the best grades in my high school career, and I've never been happier with my academics. What changed? My classes, of course. Half of my schedule is built from subjects I am passionate about: investments in entrepreneurship, economics, English literature studies of science fiction. I look forward to my time in class, do my homework without complaint, and genuinely feel like I am developing useful skills and knowledge base relevant to my future careers. This shift in my personal life has only been possible because my school recognized the need to move away from traditional education system and curriculum to better accommodate non-traditional interests. Of course, St. Andrews is only tackling a small element of the problem by broadening its scope of course offerings, but many other schools have taken this challenge to another level. And they've experienced a level of success that the US should strive for with its own public education system. Many countries allow students to learn hands-on with apprenticeship programs. According to the United States Department of Education, the average apprenticeship in the United States occurs at 30 years old, whereas in countries such as Germany, Switzerland, and the UK, apprenticeships link students finishing their formal education to the world of work. Given the great success of youth apprenticeship programs in these nations, according to the US labor, workers who complete apprenticeships programs earn $300,000 more over a lifetime than peers who don't, making it more apparent that the US should consider transitioning to this model. Why not offer students all the opportunities? Opponents may point out German companies' lack of interest in actually hiring these apprentices, which may pose a problem if the United States Republicans refuse to agree to allocate funding to the paying of youth apprentices themselves. In any context, apprenticeships may not solve the deeper education gap with regard to the skills American students learning at a young age. The massive gap in educational opportunities across various socioeconomic backgrounds, even at an elementary school level, separate American students into different tracks that would make a cohesive vocational system inaccessible for all students. With an economy currently focusing on industries that rely on a rapid technological advancements, American schools may not be able to keep up with these fields that are in constructing ever-evolving industries. But these issues of inequality will exist with or without vocational education systems. But perhaps a massive transition in American public education will force experts, politicians, and academics to take these inequalities more seriously and address them at the root level. With all these enticing avenues to break away from the current education system, you may be wondering how we got stuck in the rut we found ourselves in. To explain, I'd like to take you down a brief historical path, starting with the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1961. Passed under President Johnson as a major element on his war on poverty. The particulars of this act might not widely be known until one learns that this piece of legislation is actually the foundation of the commonly discussed No Child Left Behind Act. No Child Left Behind Act reauthorized the Education Act under the Bush administration in 2001. And many of these programs in the two bills were reauthorized a third time in 2013 under Obama. Only this time it's called the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA for short. What's ironic about these bills, which were often marketed as education reform, is that their impact was not that revolutionary at all. And they did not ensure that no child was not left behind or that every student succeeded. Although the strategy underlying these bills was to implement federal standards that would guarantee a baseline of quantity and quality of information taught in these elementary and secondary public schools, the reality is, without a significant redistribution of resources, schools could not magically accommodate. In the wake of these reforms, SAT scores actually declined from 2006 to 2014 for all demographic groups except for Asians. And when a new ideal of standardized success was suggested in 2009 with the Common Core state standards, the Department of Education faced huge pushbacks from states, schools, districts, and families who were finally frustrated enough to stand up to the federal government. With our PISA scores continuing to decline over this time period, the standards clearly did not improve American standings compared to the rest of the world. And even the education gap in our own country was clearly not addressed by these policies. In a perfect world, making these commitments to national standards and a universal curriculum should have propelled our country towards success and global acclaim in the education landscape. If that were the case, though, we would not find ourselves ranking 27th in the world in math and 24th in the world on reading on the PISA test, well below the countries whose education models we've denounced for years. Students in California, New York, Texas, and Massachusetts all have a requirement of 900 hours a year in class. However, Finland requires 608 hours. Yet, the Finnish score is significantly higher on standardized tests. Students spend 6.1 hours a week doing homework in the United States, where the Finnish spend 2.5 hours a week on homework. Do you see what I'm getting at? Schools are letting students down in the US because students spend more time doing homework and at school, yet on average perform worse than these other countries who have less time doing school-related things. This in itself should be a topic of discussion, as our school system continues to waste resources while underperforming. Given how long we spend going to school and doing homework, we should be seeing much higher outcomes for students across all socioeconomic backgrounds, unlike in other countries where an absence of wealth can prevent a student or child from receiving an education altogether. Students in the United States have this opportunity regardless of their family's income. Spend the same number of time in class as their peers from wealthier communities, yet we still face unacceptably low outcomes. To me, this says that the time students spend in class is often time poorly spent, and I hope to suggest several ways to flip the script, closing the education gap between the United States and other countries and among different marginalized groups in the United States. For us, the problem is deeper than just scoring poorly on standardized tests. Students in the US lacking apprenticeship opportunities tend to be less prepared to have success in the workplace. Schools in the United States promote problem solving, critical thinking, and writing skills, but they lack structure to pair students how to work with colleagues, develop hard skills within a profession or trade, and establish a network of similarly skilled adults. If you take anything away from this talk, I hope it's to be skeptical of our education system that we so highly value in our country. While our value is certainly not misplaced in this institution with the capacity to shape our future generations and set this country on an upward trend of innovation and progress, we ought to acknowledge that there are ways in which our current institution has failed us in its mission. While I'm not purporting to have all the answers, and a genuine effort at reviving an apprenticeship program will require more than a thorough plan for students in different age groups and those from different socioeconomic backgrounds, I believe these are conversations worth having. On an individual scale, I encourage you to be skeptical of your curriculum if it does not inspire you. But this skepticism should not amount to the complacency simply because you don't fit into your school. Where you find discomfort or relevance in what you're learning, seek learning opportunities anywhere and everywhere else outside of the classroom, and encourage your friends to do the same. Thank you.